everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Karen Hernandez. Welcome. I hope you've been enjoying everything that you're learning about, and I'm excited to be here and share a little bit of what we've been doing and I've done in the past. I'm an assistant principal at Shadow Hills High School in Indio, California. I'm also a former math teacher here where I taught Math 1, Math 2, and Compacted Math 1 for the past 7 years. And I recently became an assistant principal through this school year. So it's been a transition, but I am excited to share a little bit about what I've done here on campus and kind of what we do from some of our teachers, and I hope you enjoy it. Next slide. So a little bit about Edulastic. I've been with Edulastic about 3 years now, and my favorite part has always been the teacher dashboard. It teaches you a lot from a whole perspective, and it also teaches you from a targeted perspective. So it really depends, what is it that you're targeting? What are you looking at to gather that data? So this is one of my pieces that I truly enjoy. So whenever I give an assessment, we work with standard space. We've done, this is our 4th year doing standard space for our Math 1 students. It's our first year doing it through distance learning. So that was definitely a change, but we're doing great so far. And all of our summative assessments are based on specific standards. We always try to do small summative assessments that target the specific standard. And then the final summative assessment, we group certain standards based on the modules that we've been using. So what you have here is a summative that we took, and this is about a year old. And what I like about it is the green tells you the amount of students that got it right. But once you get to the yellow or the red, that signifies a partial correct answer for the yellow. And then the red tells you, okay, this is how many students got it wrong. The second image, it shows you correct attempts 8, partial attempts 19. So that tells you 19 students got it right and partially wrong. And then the red tells you there's 7 students that got it wrong. So when I'm thinking RTI, I'm thinking, who are my students? What standard specifically did they miss? And how am I going to target each student through a tier 1 intervention? So with us being standard based and our summative assessments focusing on a specific standard, not multiples at a time, it really allows us to target those students for that specific standard. Can we go to the next slide, please? Thank you. So here's a deeper dive. This assessment focused on REI point 1, and I have 2 views for you. On the left, it tells you if they've mastered the standard. So the ends, which I've boxed in, tell you these students have not mastered the standard. If you see right below it, you see a mix. You see an A, an M, an E. So I want to focus on my ends. My ends means those are the students that did not master the standard, and it tells you by how much. What was their performance? On the right-hand side, it also gives me a different view, and it gives it by question. So when I'm looking at a tier 1 intervention, I'm looking at, okay, how many students got what standard wrong, but I'm also looking at how many more questions within the standard they got wrong. So that way I can target by groups and I can target by the specific question. So with Edulastic, this is essential in the classroom because now I'm able to really create my groups. The students who met the standard, students who are in the middle that still need some support, but not a lot of teacher support. And now here's my group of students, the batch that is the intervention, the RTI. How am I going to reteach this so that I can now measure the growth? So through this, I believe that it was shared earlier, you saw it was a graph where you saw the increase if a student grows within the standard. So that's another phase that we look at towards the end. But when I'm doing RTI, I'm looking for that red. How many times did the student get read within all of these questions? Because now I can target from that standard, what action is it that the student was unable to understand? Next slide, please. So here's where I really focus on the RTI. So I use Edulastic, say, as they took the formative assessment or summative, and I want to look at their scores. Now that I know their scores, what standard they didn't perform well on, I go into my RTI, which is what type of error did this student make? So the platform through Edulastic, they get to put their answers, but I'm also looking at their work. Now, because we're in a virtual setting, another way that you can modify this is if a student took a screenshot, if a student had a whiteboard like Google Jamboard where they can write out their work, you can analyze in a deeper perspective their work. So now I'm looking, what errors did they make, so that I know what type of questions I'm looking for in Edulastic, what standard am I focusing on, and what DOK level I'm looking for. So the three types of errors that I'm looking for, and that's how I group my students, are the following. Is it a reading error? Is it a concept error? Or is it a reasoning error? When I look at their work and I look at the reading error, oh, it was a simple mistake, those students really don't need an intervention from the teacher. Those are the students that can work on their own. It's simply go back through your work, see if you can find your mistake. And that's how I group those specific type of students. Now, when I'm looking at a concept error and a reasoning error, that's where I really want to take a deeper dive. When it comes to the concept error, I'm looking at, okay, what part of the concept was the student confused about? So it doesn't mean they don't understand the concept completely. It's a part of the concept that the student misunderstood. Maybe they switched their X and Y's when they're solving for Y in standard form. Maybe they switched another variable, or maybe they replaced it with something else. So you really want to look at the difference between a concept error and a reasoning error. Now, that type of student you can also group, and those are usually the students that I look for as a three before me. So you go and ask your classmates, you're working in breakout rooms, you're asking questions, and before you come to the teacher or you raise your hand or you say in your breakout room that you need assistance, you're talking to your peers, whether it's virtually or in the chat box, whatever it is, what that looks like online or in the classroom. Now, the reasoning error, those are the students who did not capture the concept. That's going to be where the teacher does the RTI work. That's where you reteach the lesson. You can pull problems from Edulastic where you're looking for a DOK2 or a DOK1 to start them off. Normally what I would do is I pick questions from Edulastic that builds up the rigor so I can pinpoint where is the reasoning error. Is it at the very beginning of a DOK1 problem? Is it in the middle of a DOK3, DOK2, or is it at a DOK3? That way I can target my instruction. And then when they do a retake in Edulastic, I can now measure the growth. So when it comes to RTI, you really want to be able to analyze the types of errors that students are making, because that's going to give you an insight as to what went wrong, what's happening, and how to respond when you use Edulastic. Now, if you see that students are continuously making a reasoning error, that's a sign of maybe this is a tier 2 intervention, even though you've done your tier 1 to support your students. So maybe we want to take a deeper dive in reaching out to your tier 2 team. But through Edulastic, I love using it because it gives you on-time data. It shows you where the student is struggling. It shows you the growth, because now you can compare from where they started to where they ended, and then you can put it all together, and you can even have these conversations with students. You can share the data with parents and students, and you can talk about it in class in present mode where you don't show the names, but you show the data. Next slide, please. And I think this is my last one. I'm not sure. It is. So it's been a pleasure helping everyone out and talking a little bit about how I use the three types of errors and Edulastic together to help in RTI and to help our students move forward and grow. So I hope you've enjoyed this time. Thank you for joining us.